Well,
Yes.
Bonnie, thank you so much for coming on Rappahannock Radio today, and for
Thank you for having me.
absolutely your patience for test runs, since this is the first ever Rappahannock Radio video recording interview.
Very exciting.
Yes, and you look just camera perfect.
Thank you. I mean, I rarely do my hair, so
It looks
big deal
good.
when I do.
So, welcome to Rappahannock Radio, and welcome back to Rappahannock, right? You just recently bought a house in Rappahannock.
I did. Yeah, so it would have been October 2020. So it's been a little bit over a year, and we weren't full time at first because we had to kind of rearrange our lives to figure out how to live here full time, but we are now, and it's amazing.
Yeah. I bet that's a nice, so you were in Annapolis before.
Yes, part-time, and kind of splitting my time between there and Northern Virginia for work.
Ooh, a little bit stressful.
Yeah, just a little bit.
But you seem like one of those people that really loves their jobs, right? Like so you're a realtor, it's your day job, right? Although you're also an author.
Also an author. Yeah. Actually, I recently left real estate in the way that I was doing it.
Okay.
I'm still in real estate, but I'm in new home sales. So I work for a developer in other counties.
Okay.
And
I like the way. Good call.
So, sorry, everybody. Just taking note for that. But yeah, I work in other counties for a new developer. I'm being stationed in Charlottesville soon.
Okay.
So I'll be commuting there for work. So it's still in the real estate world, still interacting with people every day, but it's a little bit different in that, I'm strictly, on site and working with the homes that I have available versus driving a 3-hour radius, which is what I was doing before.
Oh my gosh. Wow. That takes a toll definitely on your mind and on your vehicle.
Yes.
So,
sure.
I'm so happy that you got to find a little slice of, I know how connected you are to Rappahannock, the landscape, and you're also a very spiritual person. So like Red Oak Mountain, I know is definitely your spot. So it's so great that you get to be here.
It's kind of nuts to be like, I used to drive all by myself there all the time just to read, from get away from the blacktop jungle, and to be it's right behind me, it's just totally nuts.
Exactly. You're
definitely living a fairy tale, that's for sure.
And you're very inspired by fairy tales, right? In your little shoebox. Hey, I've got one of those. It's easier to clean.
It is.
Like you can clean it all in one day.
Yeah. I do all the time.
Yeah.
So yeah, but it's great.
So, speaking of fairy tales, I know you're very inspired by fairy tales by Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, different classic fairy tale authors, or I guess you would say other realm authors. It's not just about fairies, right?
Yeah.
So,
that's
tell
a good
me,
way to put it.
or how would you describe fantastical worlds? What do you think?
You're spot on. Yeah, other realms. I think that's you're also a very spiritual person yourself, and mystical, all of the things. And so that is of me too. I just, anything that kind of brings me elsewhere.
Yeah. And we both have the hawk in common. I know I always see hawks at very poignant times in my life where I'm like, I need a sign. I need to just be reassured, or I just need to get back into my own self and feel grounded. And then I'm like, oh, there's my buddy. There's the hawk.
There's one right there. Yeah. When we came to look at this house, there was a bald eagle on our way in and a falcon on our way out. And I was like, oh.
You're like, this is
meant to be.
This is definitely it. Yeah. And good thing you have the realtor in, right? I have a really good friend who's a realtor locally. Not that I didn't use you. I'm sorry. You were here at the time.
But don't need to worry about that.
I feel like that was a big deal trying to find property in Rappahannock. It's a huge deal. So
it was really hard.
Was it? Even for a realtor?
even for me, yeah, I probably watched, what selling Rappahannock to my husband wasn't hard at all. He's all about, everything outdoor. So probably in 2018, I started watching the market. 2019 is when I got a little bit more serious. And then 2020, I was like, I really want to buy something. But in that time span, there was really only 2 homes that I saw that at the time that I could afford. Mm-hmm. That's like over a 2-year span of time, that like for only 2 homes to come on the market. That's like, it was pretty difficult. And when this one came, like it was I drove here in the middle of the night in the rain the first time, just did a drive-by.
Like, I have to get there.
It's going to go away,
Yeah, you knew it was going to get snatched up.
Yeah. And we actually were, like competing against an investor. It was really like, a cash investor. It's still a miracle we even got the home because you're like, but the previous owners liked, it going on to somebody that was going to live there and appreciate the county and whatnot.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. They wanted somebody who wasn't going to just come in and tear it down and clear the land and put up a couple of apartments or something. Yeah. Rappahannock has done a really good job of sort of keeping that at bay. But again, it comes with a price because like you said, you could only find like 3 houses in like a year's time that you could afford. Yeah. And it was the same for me. But anyways, you're here now. So let's talk a little bit about Wonder Star Kids. Or how am I saying it right? Because I know it's like Wunder, like almost like the German style.
It's one of those like, we needed a domain name and we thought it was cute, so we changed the O to a U, and people do that all the time these days. So we just Wonder Star Kids because it's kind of like we wanted a brand because we knew we were going to do other things. I think, currently we've just launched some prints that are based off the book. So we knew we were going to want other things. So we came up with kind of a name for our publishing company to incorporate, like if we launched anything else or any other items that had to do with like fairy tales or anything like that, or any other books. So we came up with the name Wonder Star Kids, and it was totally a joint thing with my business partner, Britt, who's the illustrator for the book.
Yeah. Right.
We were just ping-ponging ideas back and forth one day and landed on Wonder Star.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but I read you and Britt met at dinner through mutual friends and then immediately clicked. And how did this idea come about? Like, were you just sort of naturally, innately?
So 2016, I had been nannying for about 8 years through college, and I had read, hundreds of books. And I really, at the time, had an issue with some of the board books, just like not flowing. When you have a toddler running around the room and you're trying to put them to bed, you want something that flows and rhymes like easily.
Get their attention.
And it gets their attention. And also something they can hear, because like that repetitive, and just like some of the books I'd read from Barnes and Noble would just like abruptly, like it'd be like a slant rhyme in the middle of the book, and you'd be like, that did not work. You're
very
like flipping
choppy.
to the next page. Yes. And so a friend of mine mentioned, because at the time, we were both in education, and she was like, you should write a book. And I was like, I've never, thought about that. And then later that night, it was super spiritual. I just sat down and I wrote like 2 books, just wrote them.
Wow.
So one was called Rise and Shine, Sweet Child of Mine. And that is actually the partner to this one, which is It's Time for Bed, Sweet Child of Mine. So I wrote them, didn't really think I was going to do anything with them. And I was at dinner, a business dinner about a completely different business venture, something to do with real estate, but app oriented. And Britt, she is everything when it comes to, like digital, technical. She is an absolute whiz. She can create apps, infrastructure for that. She built our entire website. She's just a jack of all trades, and she's incredible. And I didn't really know her at all, but I was being introduced to her in a different setting. And she mentioned that she had a drawing account and, on Instagram that she like drew for a hobby. And so I asked to see it, just as any fellow art, I love to draw too, and I just wanted to see. She had, those like realist drawings.
Yeah.
So it just was a pencil drawing of Jon Snow, and it just was like a photograph of Jon Snow. I was like,
you were like,
oh my God. I was like, the level, the skill that you have to be able to reproduce that. And she had a Wonder Woman one. I mean, it's just like, you're like, were you a childhood star? Like, where did you come up with these skills? Like, it's just incredible. Yeah. And it just, in a moment of kind of like a light bulb moment, I was like, would you be interested in illustrating a children's book? And then it went from there. She's like, yeah, I guess so. And I sent her the book and we clicked, and she's also everything magical. And like, she loves Tolkien. We're both really big Lord of the Rings fans.
It sounds like a George R.R. Martin fan.
Yes. Yes. Although I did read those books and they got really bad. So
they do get, it's like hyper realism.
Yeah. So anyways, we just formed this really amazing partnership, and we always knew we were going to want to go the self-publishing route and do it ourselves, and a step up from publishing, like through Amazon. We handle everything. We manufacture it in another country, ship it here, and then distribute it ourselves. Just because if you were to go through a big publishing company, and nothing wrong with that, but especially with children's books, you lose a lot of the rights to the illustrations and the vision. And with Brit, we could jointly work on this, where if I was to market it to different publishing companies, it's kind of like shooting in the dark. And then in terms of like, you might find one that wants to publish it, but they are going to, have you use this illustrator, or they have their certain vision, and you don't have much say in that whole process.
It's like a totally different book.
Control, and then kind of like do other fun projects on the side with it. So it's been really, really fun.
So it took a lot of research though. I mean, how do you go about, the first question that came to mind is, go ahead.
I thought about like how you would answer that question. Because when I started, I thought it was going to be something pretty simple. I was like, oh, I can use this self-publishing platform or that. And then the more and more research I did, there was just all of these drawbacks, really mainly to do with quality control. So that's when, after a couple of trial and error, well, maybe I'll publish through Ingram Spark, or maybe I will do Amazon. Britt and I just went over all the pros and cons of every different way we could publish it, and we landed on doing it ourselves, which was a ton of research, because communicating with a manufacturing company from another country, manufacturing company from another country is quite difficult, has its own challenges,
right?
And finding a company that's reputable, if there's damage to your books, we'll refund you for it. That also isn't really expensive. That was just it kind of was like just like day and night research for probably a couple months, until we landed on a company. We tried out got a couple different samples, after we had all of our illustrations that Britt finished, and selected a company. And I don't know the name of them, but if anybody was interested in doing the same, I could completely coach them through it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Primarily looking on Alibaba.com to find a manufacturer is the way to go. But there's little things that you would need to know, like, you want to see that they've worked with this certain company before, or that company, because then if that company is using them, like if Disney's used them before to publish any of their books or their merchandise, then, they're going to usually be pretty good.
Yeah. And especially since you wanted it to be not only a high quality book in terms of the writing, which obviously it is because you wrote it, and the artistic value that's included. But also, one thing that's unique about your books is that they're made, you make a point of making them with non-toxic materials.
Yeah.
While also being durable. So, that's huge to find a company that's going to stay true to that, right? It seems like that would be hard. From being a mom and so my first child is now almost 2.5, but the thing that, and I still do it. I do it less now because now I'm like, okay, this is fine. And this is, probably not just based on the company. But I'd be like, oh my God, what is in this toy that he's putting in his mouth? Even though it's a baby toy, where did, like there are tons of different like types of toddler chewy toys. Yeah. Stuff like that. Like I became I just Googled everything and was like, what are the chemicals that are in there? Okay, let me now look at, there's a site, I forget what it's called. It's
why do my baby clothes smell like formaldehyde?
Or like boots. I got him a pair of rubber boots one time and they like still smell like plastic. I'm like, I know that they're rubber boots, but like I'm like, what the heck? But he loves them. They have sharks in them. They light up like, yeah, right. My essential oils. I'm like lavender. But I mean, so did you have someone coaching you? Like you offered to be a coach to someone looking to do this, but who was coaching you?
Yeah, no one. It was one of those things, like it started with blogs, and that's one of the things I've thought of doing before is trying to come up with, an instructional video to send out because, you can get steered in really the wrong direction. And it was a kind of a miracle that I even found out that I could manufacture it myself. You have to be able to fund it, but still it was reasonably, inexpensive, like under, I think, for all of the books that we ordered, and which was a lot, like in, I think a little bit over 1,000 books initially. Wow. And with shipping, it was well under $5,000. It was like a couple $1,000s. I don't know the exact amount, but it was a very reasonable amount. And there's other people in the book world that they'll actually do a GoFundMe or they'll launch one of those campaigns. I can't remember the name of them. A campaign where like you donate to people's like startup.
Yeah, like Patreon.
Yes,
stuff
something like that to fund the initial cost. With us, we didn't need to do that. We were able, since there was two of us, to kind of put our money together and make it really affordable to do, just to start up. And for a business, that's a very low startup cost.
Yeah.
And when I guess basically I was steered through research and blogs, a bunch of different ways. And after all of the ways weren't really viable for what we wanted to do, I stumbled upon a blog talking about that they had manufactured their book by themselves and that to not listen to other advice, and it seems scary, but to do it yourself.
Right, because it seems so much harder than to just be like, all right, I'm going to go to Amazon, they're going to take this, whatever, and it's going to, at least my material will be out there. And you're like, no, I'm going to do this. And so really, I mean, it's a grassroots project that, started from the feet up, I guess, as they say, right? Really. So not only is it a grassroots project, but this is an all woman-owned company, right? Girl power.
Girl power. And it's fun. There's a lot of things that go into a business, and it's just nuts. Like, just to be with Britt and I and everything that we've done to kind of build it up, and just our website alone. We just recently opened an Etsy shop.
Okay.
And we're primarily selling off there. We love our website, but just the upkeep of it is a lot. It's beautiful, but it's nice to have an Etsy shop.
Yeah.
Etsy is a really great company. So we still have our website, but we're kind of moving forward to phasing to primarily selling off of Etsy.
Because I noticed.
But anyways, like I said, it's been amazing being able to work with a woman and have this be like our little baby, something that we produce.
Yeah. So I noticed, so even if you don't go through Amazon to publish it, you could still use Amazon to market the book, right? But I noticed that it wasn't on there.
Yeah. Actually, funny you asked that.
Well, I was curious about the choice. Not that there's anything wrong with it.
So we had originally planned to use Amazon to sell our book as one of the platforms. And we're still looking into possibly selling off of Walmart. But But Amazon as an overall company, we just felt for the two of us that it wasn't really a platform that best represented what we wanted to do and what we believed in. Not that I think there's anything wrong with Amazon. I buy Amazon, but from Amazon. But
I mean, that still works. It's definitely funny. Like, I buy Amazon. I mean,
I Amazon things. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, in the pandemic, who didn't? You're like, I know.
But still, it's a really great tool because, you go to CVS and then, if you check the price on Amazon, it's usually cheaper.
It's cheaper.
So it's,
that's how they got everybody
But
beat.
Overall, Amazon isn't my favorite in terms of businesses. I think they're a little bit too much of a monopoly. And so we just didn't want to contribute to that. And we wanted to kind of give to some of their competitors. And that's why we would use Walmart. They have a similar platform. I know Bed Bath & Beyond just kind of launched a similar platform to Amazon where you can be an individual seller and sell on their website. So we're looking into that. We started with the Etsy recently, and we'll be moving on to other platforms too soon. But Amazon will probably, unfortunately, always stay. Jeff Bezos doesn't need our money, so we're not going to give it to him.
Right. I mean, good for you guys. Those are choices that, because you run your company, you get to make those. I mean, your dollar supports what you choose it to support. And I think that that's an excellent reminder of what should be, the pure theoretical version of how capitalism is supposed to work, right? You don't need to give it to a monopoly. You're going to support companies that are going to support small businesses and therefore feed back into that symbiotic relationship that you're a part of. So
definitely.
So if people can find the book, It's Time for Bed, Sweet Child of Mine, on wonderkids.com, but also on Etsy right now. Yep. Okay.
But also on Etsy. It's very easy. Wonderstarkids.com. It's just wonder spelled with a U. But Etsy shop, you can find us if you were to search our Etsy shop as Wonder Star Kids. You could also search in It's Time for Bed, Sweet Child of Mine. You'll find it. You'll find it if you write in It's Time for Bed, or if you write in Good Night Moon, because I'm so sneaky.
You're so sneaky. You're like hashtag. Hey, you got to connect.
This is a good night book. So
curious, any connection with the song Sweet Child of Mine? Not to step on any copyright issues here, but
yeah, no copyright issues there with the title. But and in terms of the book, there isn't really a major connection with the song. I was obsessed with that song, as many of us were in high school, when I thought, I was like, oh my God. I mean, this song speaks to my soul.
Yeah.
It was so new, even though it was old in high school. Yeah. So, I definitely have sentimental value with that song for sure.
What inspired, well, I know you said you're so you were in education at the time when a friend of yours recommended that you write some children's books, and especially your experience with being a nanny for many different families. But I'm curious, so you sat down and wrote those two books in one sitting?
In one sitting. It was crazy. Yeah.
Wow. And so how much editing did you choose to go back and do?
So there's this one line, not many of the lines, but it's one of the lines is candy canes and blue Great Danes. And I messed with pink Great Danes, green Great Danes. I could not decide on a color. So funny things like that. Or one of the lines, gold covered walkways, was something like frosting. It wasn't this, but it was something like frosting sundaes. And somebody was like, there's a lot of candy in this book.
So, you're really promoting the candy company to the children right now, Bonnie.
There's moon pies, there's marshmallows. And so I toned it back like that, but very few edits overall.
And then
I am working. So
go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
No.
Our second book, Rise and Shine, Sweet Child of Mine, we are I'm working on shortening it because it's a little bit longer, and we want them to match the same amount of pages. So that will probably have more editing.
Okay.
Heavy editing in it.
Now, are you, who edits these books? Who's your editor? Are you self-editing or just Britt? Okay.
I have an editor that I pay. She's a friend of mine. She's done other books before, and she's really talented. And I had her edit this book. Okay. And, yeah, she did a great job. Just like, I'm not the best with comma placements. So like
those tricky little tails. Well, are you good at taking criticism? I know.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I mean, because especially something that's like, you know, your creative child, you know, I'm just curious, like there's a lot of, ego you probably have to give up, right? I mean, and with Britt, I'm curious, like, so I know you've spoken several times about how the relationship just sort of naturally flowed, which is excellent. But were you like, this is sort of what I'm thinking about, or just sort of like, you know, paint whatever you want, or, you know, were you ever like, no, that's not it, take it back? Or
Britt and I yeah, that's a really good question. So it's so funny because that entire process was so natural for the both of us. We spoke briefly about a vision. You know, I sat down with her, and when I say like partners, we're really joint with all of this. I wrote the book, but everything, you know, has been a collaboration. So I sat down and kind of told her the vision I had for the illustrations. I'll give you a sneak peek.
Yay.
But like, I was interested. I had been drawing a lot of circles that year. Oh, just 1 second. My husband's home.
You're like, yeah.
Hey, Billy. I'm doing the interview. If you want to go shower. Thank you. Okay. Sorry. You didn't probably expect me to be on the phone.
You didn't tell him that I made you wait a million times to do a video.
That we weren't prepared. We're like, you better be home by 1. It's like 12:30. I'm still on the phone. Anyways, so I had been drawing a lot of circles, and I like the idea of the picture being in the circle because with like a darker background, because it really like draws you into the illustration. And for toddlers, which this is primarily for, you know, ages under 5, you know, I just had that vision. And it was funny because we talked about the visions for each page, and we were like, she's like, I have the same vision. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, this is a match made in heaven. So I don't know if it's like that every time with partners, business partners, but for us, it was like this really beautiful collaboration. Originally we might have one of the characters be a mouse, and then we changed it to a lion. But typically if I brought something off, like I'm just not so sure if, you know, there should be like more flowers or less flowers. She'd be like, I was wondering the same thing, you know, and then, so it was like, it was really, really great. And in terms of being, you know, nitpicky, it really just fell together. She's so talented, and she did such an incredible job capturing the scene of each page, which was just based off of 1 or 2 lines, that I don't feel that we went through so much refinement in terms of like ideas on the illustrations. And that really was a complete blessing, because I can see for other people how that might be really hard, you know.
It could definitely be a process. Yeah.
Especially if like, what if you just hated something somebody did? Like, I can't imagine telling somebody like, oh yeah, I hate that page. You know?
Be like, let's go a different direction. It sounds like you two ladies are the other Wonder Kids. Like at first, I'm like, okay, they're marketing to like, you know, all children, the wonder of children, Wonder Kids, which I still think it is, but I'm like, it's kind of talking about you and Britt. Like Bonnie and Britt are the Wonder Kids here. You're like superpower. Like,
it's honestly been just like that. Like it's just been just so fun. And yeah, like for kids, but also for us, because it's like what we would have loved as kids, you know. It's not like Care Bears, but it has that rainbow.
Well, I was
both are
thinking,
from like carrier age.
yeah, me too. But what the borders reminded me of, and that's why I'm curious if you or Britt, either of you have any background in Waldorf, because it's very Waldorf-esque, like the softness and the borders and the sort of inviting the child in with the creativity. So I don't know.
Like the Waldorf school?
Like, not the Waldorf school.
Creative school called the Waldorf school.
I think there are many. Like the Rudolf Steiner method of education, right? Like, but it is. I mean, there's a very loud truck driving by my house. So, part of getting affordable real estate in Rappahannock is you're really close to the road, at least on my part. Like, I don't think setbacks existed when they built this house in the 70s.
Or like any requirements, because like our house is really close to the property line on the left side. We're like, we wouldn't be allowed to build this house at this current distance.
Right. Anyways, back to, so no Waldorf inspiration from...
I guess you could say that I used to be interested in working at the Waldorf school, and I love everything they stand for and their method and they believe in. And you could say that, not that the Waldorf school influenced me, but all of that kind of contributed to the person that I am. And then that's why, the book was created in the way that it was created.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit more about your history with education, because you said that your friend, going back to that pivotal moment where your friend was like, you should write a book, and you were like, ding. So you were in an education program, like an early childhood education?
A special education program.
Okay.
I was finishing it up, so I have an undergrad in special education, and I was kind of laid out to go through the education route, go on to get my master's. And I was in this kind of in-between time that summer when I wrote the book of, where do I want to go in life? And at the time, there was a position open, I believe, at Alexandria Public Schools. And they had a good master's program that if I worked for them, there was some type of discount involved in my master's. And at that time period, my grandma got ill with dementia, and my family needed somebody to stay in the house with her. They were trying to keep her in the home as long as possible. They just wanted to avoid, being in a nursing home. So they asked if they could pay me to take care of her. And so I did that for a year. And when I finished, when her mind kind of went to the stage where she really did need to be in full-time care, was like October the following year. So it would have been 2017. And they were only offering a part-time position at the school at that time, because it was October, everything had been filled. And that is when I, from the advice from someone else, was like, well, you should try real estate while you're waiting, to figure that out. Or another position opens, and then kind of never went back to education, though I do hope to eventually get to a stage in my life where I can do it part-time. Like I'd love to do, be like an assistant, at Rappahannock County, in the public school there, but we'll see where life takes me.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. I just think, just obviously, well, our viewers may or may not be able to tell, but I've, known you for many years now. And I just think that you're excellent with children and with people in general. So I would love to see you. Not that you're not helping people find shelter, which is a very important part of the human process, but so are kids. And I would love to see you revisit that role again. So
thank you. I hope to. That's long-term goal, get back in the school at least somehow.
Yeah. Tell me a little bit about how you grew up.
So I grew up in Northern Virginia in the Blacktop jungle. I grew up in Falls Church City, though, and Falls Church City, we played Rappahannock High School. We were from North Mason. Okay. Yeah, we were tiny. I think at that time we were about 100 to 120 per grade. And it was a 2.2 square mile town that didn't belong to anything. it didn't belong to a county. So it was just this little 2.2 square mile, like suburbia in the middle of Northern Virginia. And so you knew everybody from kindergarten up. There was a little farmer's market, and we didn't play any of the local schools like nearby, like because they were so much bigger. They were in a different division than us. So we played like Strasburg, Clark County. We played Luray, like Luray Bulldogs, like
you said it right. Like I always get, even though I've been a Rappahannock my entire life, I say Luray and people are like, no, it's Luray. So
only reason is because of cheerleading, like because you just hear it, Luray, Bulldogs. It was just that accent coming through. So anyways, we play all these different, we always had to travel for sports. So that was kind of my upbringing, it was an idyllic, like suburban lifestyle in the middle of everything, where you didn't really feel like you were in Northern Virginia because you weren't driving everywhere. You were just kind of going to your local area in that tiny town. It's now been kind of eaten by development, but at the time it had one strip of, small shops and places to eat. And then on the other two sides of the main road was suburbia. And then I spent my summers in Northern Michigan. And that was like no internet, on the lake. There's that song by Kid Rock, Summertime in Northern Michigan. And if anybody wants to know what Michigan's like in your teens, that's literally it. It's exactly like that. Like very reckless, jumping off the dock, all the things.
Like, no internet. We don't have any place to go. We're going to go crazy here.
That's what you did. It was like, especially back in, the 2000s, like 2007 and stuff. You're just like, what can I get into? And
we did it here too.
Michigan stops are far and few between. So
I think my favorite
that
thing.
Was kind of like.
I was just going to share like the thing that people do in Rappahannock, and I didn't realize until recently, until I started. I was working at RPK for a little bit, serving. Yeah. And people would get off the mountain from Old Rag and they'd be like, oh, it was so intense. And, and it can be, if you haven't done it before, you're not prepared for it. And then I'd be like, yeah, we used to in high school, like hike that in the dark during a full moon. And they'd be like, what? Why would you do such a dangerous thing? And then I was like, oh yeah, I guess that is pretty dangerous.
So funny.
But it's like you're a kid and you're like, in your mind, you're invincible at that time, which is sort of like a crazy. I hope that this next.
Like, what can we get into out here?
I hope this next generation of kids can get that back a little bit, because I definitely feel like us, like growing up. We had like global warming, climate change like looming over our head all the time, which is like, there might not be any dolphins or whales or anything when we're like 45, which I'm only laughing because it's so intense, right? The thought of it. But I'm like, the kids nowadays, like, right? Like they're like, they can't even like step out of their door without fear of dying. Like I really want, like, and I'm just, because I have a young child and I'm like, I hope one day we can get back to, a little bit more of like, the thing about life is that is so magical is the unknown. And like, yes, it's scary, but like you have to be courageous, because it's not that you're not afraid or you shouldn't be cautious, but you have to go forward anyways. Like, you know what I mean?
I completely agree. And I think that's a lot in our generation. I mean, so many of my friends kind of want to go that grassroots way when they start having children, or really facilitate their children being outside, and imagination, because we all grew up in the 90s and we're the last of that, we're the last of having, nothing to do all day, maybe you had some TV and a couple of video games, but for the most part, we spent our entire childhood like outside. Yeah. And imagination. I mean, all the things that you would do. Like I used to pretend I was a witch in my backyard. I'd get like food dye and leaves and like make these concoctions in a pot, like things like that.
Some people make a good living that way. Right? Have you been on Instagram recently? And they're like, here's your subscription witch kit.
I know. You're like, I can go rip some leaves on my tree. I got some sage in my backyard.
Bonnie's like, I got those potions. We're not called Wonder Kids for nothing here.
Yeah, definitely.
So yeah, very creative background then for you. Like,
yeah, definitely. I think, I don't know, coming from the 90s, there, you know, between the TV programming of like My Little Pony and Care Bears, and then also just being outside all the time, definitely facilitated a ton of imagination in me. And husband's like, you can walk by the camera.
I'm surprised that my husband isn't back yet, because he had to take, so he didn't have to. He offered because he knew what was probably going to happen. So he took our son and our really intense husky dog like for a drive, because otherwise it was just going to be like the dog whining in the background and then Casimir being like, hello, hello. Like I was trying to run a test run yesterday and he kept walking by the screen and be like, there's a baby.
So adorable.
Yeah.
That's so cute. It's such a good stage. Oh my goodness.
It's a really fun
Well,
stage.
I wouldn't have minded, but I know, you know, toddlers and huskies, good Lord. So,
just might not be
the two of them.
for any listener. They might be like, oh, this is really intense, because it is intense. But yeah, so husband in the background, no problem. Rapanic Radio is still grassroots, right?
Definitely. I'll let him know he doesn't need to like scurry by.
So I'm curious what type of, you mentioned that one of the reasons why you wanted to have your own platform for marketing the book is because you were talking about not only, well, you have the other book, Rise and Shine, coming out. Do you have an estimated date for when that's going to come out? Not to pressure you.
Yeah, everything with like the current like state of the world and just like shipping and things kind of slowed things down. But we do aim to do it within 2022. But right now I'm just kind of like not giving out any dates or promises because
I get that.
It's still a process. Like sometimes you might be able to order books and they might come within a month, and then it could be like 4-month wait. So it just depends on the time when your illustrations are ready. And I am done editing the book down.
So you're still in the editing process, right?
Yes.
Got you. What other kind
once I finish that, it'll snowball.
Okay. We'll look forward to that, and we'll definitely rep it on Rappahannock Radio as much as possible.
Oh, thank you.
Absolutely. But I wanted to ask you, so what other, besides books, do you have any other kids products in mind that speak to you? I mean, not that, just books are great, but I'm just curious, I know you have a vivid imagination, so.
Yeah. So actually it's a really great question. So, we launched prints because I love artwork and it's just fun to do that. But, there's two things I really love and I do hope to create someday. But like, if it was a gift for somebody, like right now, though I don't have this product, I gift it out all the time. I'm obsessed with night lights, like pretty ones, like unique ones, candle, like, candles that you put an image on the wall. Like they might have like some stenciling in it. They're just so pretty. I love waking up in the morning because it just kind of gives you that like magical fairy vibe where the lights are low and there's some twinkle in the background. So I do hope to create a night light someday, and also a security blanket. All the children I nannied always had one. Like, little animals, they have got a little head and then they've got the blanket underneath. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think they're so cute.
And they chew on them a little bit and they talk to them.
Yeah, they suck on them. They get super nasty and everything.
But throw them in the washing machine.
Cute. Yeah. But yeah, I do love those just because it's a fun security thing for kids. And, the children I nannied, their security blankets brought them so much joy. And so I do hope to be able to create one day. But if anybody's looking for like good recommendations for children's products, there's by Fisher Price, they do this little like glow worm, like seahorse, like it puts its belly like glows, and it's like a little stuffed animal, and it has this like soft music, and you put it in the bed with your kid, and it like softly glows and sings, like it has this like nice harmony as like they go to sleep. And that is a very cheap, it's like $20. It's like the best gift to get. And
it's Fisher Price is an old, company. Like as kids go, like I'm pretty sure they had that when we were. Yes. That's good.
They got
to
that
know.
One
right
down.
I'm gonna have to get that because my son is in like a huge like underwater phase where like he's so into like fishies and the ocean and everything, like whales. Yeah, that would be great. So thank you for the recommendation.
Oh, fun for him.
Do you, Bonnie? Do you ever? I know you've done a lot of donations to the libraries, local libraries, and stuff like that. Have you ever done a reading?
I did do a reading this fall, and at Rappahannock County Library, and it was super cute. It's okay.
You'll do another one, right? Okay.
Yeah, I'll do another one. I also, I'm like, so I do have a lot of, I collect, of course I do, but like I collect like old fairy tales that like, are like super pretty and magical looking, and like, or just like, I'm obsessed with Wind in the Willows and, like I have some picture books from there. So I'm planning to email the library soon to be like, I'm happy to do my book again, but there's like these 3 other books that I also want to read. So let me come read them.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
I don't have children yet, so they're just kind of like sitting around, but you
don't have them yet. Does that mean you're...
Someday. I hope to have kids someday. I want to have kids, but I'm like, I guess
have some stuff to do.
Yeah. I just started a new career, so I think probably within 2 to 3 years I'll start having children. But I kind of want to get like settled first before I'm like, hey guys, I'm pregnant.
Yeah,
hire me. Pregnant.
I did that. Surprise. It's very stressful. Also, learning it sounds like you're already pretty much like versed in it, but like for me, when I started a job when I was pregnant with Casimir, it was like I felt just like very slow, like mentally slow, because I'm like, your body is growing another human being, and then I'm like trying to learn this new like method of doing things, like, and it was just, I was like, oh my god, I just came home and I was just so like, I stressed out.
Well, you're like, like you said, growing a human, it's a big deal.
Yeah, it is a big deal. Not unlike growing a brainchild. Right? There's a lot of...
so cute.
He's very sweet.
And he's got red hair. It's so beautiful.
He does. He's got the magical red hair.
Do you know where it came from?
So apparently, and I didn't know this until having a child with red hair. So now, well, I've always known that they were rare, but it has to be a recessive gene on both sides. So my grandfather had red hair. Well, I don't, according to my mom, when I knew him, he had just silver hair. And then my husband's aunt has red hair. So it's in there somewhere.
Somewhere. Yeah, Billy and I have red on both sides, and we're also like, both of us are entirely recessive. So I don't have a single facial feature from my parents, and
that's
he doesn't
crazy
either. Yeah, it is insane. I look like my sister, like in terms of we look like siblings, but I don't have like eyes, nose, mouth, facial structure. I don't have anything from my parents.
That's
I
wild.
actually look the most like my cousin in my family, and my husband is the same way. He looks like his brother. He looks like he looks like his brother, mostly more so than his sister, but he doesn't actually have a facial feature from either one of his parents. So we're always like, I don't know what we're going to pop out. Like,
it's going to be beautiful. You're going to love it.
Oh my gosh. So we'll see.
Well,
genes are funny though. You really never know.
Who would have thought I was going to have an author, entrepreneur, and realtor on, and then find out that she's a genetic isolate.
She's like unbelievably recessive.
I just have never heard anybody say that like that. That's fascinating.
Well, like I just, when I finally realized it, we were sitting like around the table when I was in high school, and everyone, my sister was like, I have your nose and I have your lips. And then they all kind of just like zoned in on me, and they were like,
you're the weird one.
That's not mine.
Well, whatever you got, it looks good. So.
Yeah. But I was like, well, what about like my grandparents? You know, it's like, no, nothing.
Come to find out later, you're adopted, Bonnie. So.
Yeah. You might have the same coloring as your sister, but you know, milkman baby.
Oh, gosh. You're too much. Thank you so much for coming on Rappahannock Radio today and being our first video interview. I couldn't have picked a more eloquent and gorgeous businesswoman to have for the first video interview. Thank you.
Thank you. It's been a joy. And I have, never done an interview like this before other than, job interview. So this
you got
really
the job.
I know. Thank you. Well, you have a good day, and I hope to see you soon. I'll definitely stop by, once I can get my car out.
Right, once the snow, although I heard there's another snowstorm coming on Thursday and then like on Saturday. That's why I was also like, I need to get this this whatever type of interview, this remote interview down so I don't have to leave my house.
No. Gonna be locked in for the next week. Yeah, I'm like, so as soon as this phone call's over, I'm going to be like addressing the car situation because I'm like, I do need to leave. So
it's still stuck. Okay, well, good luck with that. And then, so we have ordered our Wonder Kids book.
Oh, yeah.
I can't wait to
I'll drop you by and refund you.
No,
it's fine. I was going to get you anyways today.
Please, everyone, go and check out Bonnie and Britt's work at wonderkids.com. You can find them on WonderKids, at WonderKids, right? On Instagram. Wonder Star Kids. I'm sorry.
Wonder Star Kids. Easiest way to do it is just tell them to go, if you guys want it, go to Etsy and type in "It's time for bed" or "It's time for bed to be child of mine."
I can see all the moms.
Good nightmare.
The moms now. It's time for bed.
Get to bed. So just a really quick ending note on what the book is. Sorry, I didn't mention it, but it's a book about bedtime and all of the magical dreams that await children when they go to bed. So it helps facilitate, getting children excited about bedtime and all the dreams that they could have. So go find
all the adventures.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.